I can't do it.
Okay.
We'll do it live.
Okay. No.
We'll do it live. It. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. Thing sucks.
Yeah, it does, Bill. Welcome in. It's a Monday edition of the Daily Puck Drop. Every single day, we come your way at 10 a.m. on all the different platforms, whether you're watching, listening live, or watching later and listening later. YouTube, subscribe when you are there. The podcast platforms, whatever your favorite podcast platform is, whether it's Apple, Spotify, or YouTube Music, does not matter. Also, if you are listening to the show live, you can, by the way, driving around in your car, walking the dogs, doing projects around the house. You say, I can't watch. The Puck Sports mobile app, download it today, iOS and also for Android users. Jim Moore is here. We got a great show for you today. Coming up, we'll talk about the blockbuster trade there in the NBA, Jim's favorite sport. Dry January is over for Jim, so it's become Bender February there for Jim Moore. Little League, a very sad day for me yesterday. A finality of Little League yesterday. Chip Kelly with the Raiders and Pete Carroll. Big week for Mike Holmgren as well, and we are less than 10 days away from the start of spring training. Soto Mojo. Ladies and gentlemen, broadcasting from the Puck Sports Studios, built by Limbach Lumber. Folks, contractors, do-it-yourselfers, they're going to take care of you. Give them a call at Limbach Lumber, 206-782-3487. Ask for Matt. He'll take care of you. They've been taking care of the community around Seattle since 1930. Also, you can email them or visit their website at limbachlumber.com. Jim joins us on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. He's always here, always on time, and always with a great attitude. And it's brought to you by the one and only
always causing you a source of frustration around 9:57 every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday when my microphone isn't working correctly. But it is right now. I think everyone can hear it right now. I'm sponsored by a Clean Streak professional window and exterior cleaning service, Puck, proudly serving Island and Skagit counties for more than 10 years. This is a new ad read. I'm really proud of it. A Clean Streak specializes in so many different services, from roof and gutter cleaning to pressure washing. They'll handle all those tough and dirty jobs so you don't have to. This week, though, with the winter weather here, check out their window washing service. I mean, Brian Turner and his crew, they don't want to get up on these slippery roofs this week anyway with the snow and ice out there. So your windows are no doubt dirty and smudgy from neglect. Let Brian Turner and his guys clean them up for you and give those windows the sparkle they and you deserve. Call a Clean Streak at 360-395-5748 or visit cleanstreak.com to get a free estimate today.
Thank you to everyone that is watching and listening to the show live. If you're watching it live, you can always join the chat on YouTube and on Twitter. Corey always checks in. Good morning. Good morning to you, Corey. Dan checking in. Dan, happy Monday. I'm not a big fan of Mondays, Dan, but happy Monday to you. A regular viewer, listener, Jeff says good morning. And to everyone that is checking in. Gary also saying good morning. A little snow in Tacoma. Yes, Jim, it is snowing. Let's see, I'm looking outside. Oh, it's coming down pretty good right now. Snowing in the Seattle area, which probably in about an hour, the entire city will shut down.
Yeah, you get half an inch and things go crazy. But, in Seattle's defense, it is a hilly city.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I mean, people always make fun of well, you guys can't handle the snow. I'm like, the entire city's on a hill. I mean, you do realize that, right? We're on a hill.
Yeah, you take somebody from Green Bay and you put them on the top of Queen Anne Hill and say, hey, go down to the Space Needle and see how you do.
Yeah, damn right. Where do we find you today? Are you home or are you in another hotel?
No, I'm in a God, it's just...
Dude, what are you doing?
Our whole life has been a clusterfuck for about a month. Huh?
Didn't you guys buy a house?
Yeah, we did. And we're about 2 miles from that house right now at a Holiday Inn while the guys, there's a painting crew in there. Yeah. The walls were a little too dark for my wife.
Okay,
and so
that's right.
Yeah. We're getting it painted. And while these guys are in there painting the house, you can't exactly be in there and be in their way. So we've been at the Holiday Inn south of town here for let's see, 3 nights, something like that. You know the best part though, the dogs love it because they have that, the free, in quotes, breakfast. And so every morning I go out there and grab scrambled eggs and pork links for them, and yeah, they're pretty happy about it. They don't want to go back to the house and get that dry food again.
Your dogs cannot be happy. They have been living out of a suitcase and a car for like 5 months.
Yeah, well, we have too. I don't know. I'm sick of it, man. I cleaned out a storage unit on Saturday, and have you ever tried to lift a Traeger grill by yourself?
I have not. Do not have one. Do you recommend getting one though? Are they? Is it good?
Oh yeah, they're great. They're great as long as you don't have to lift it in the back of a truck. And I'm sitting there. I'm sitting. I literally was talking to myself in the storage unit. I'm going, come on, Jim. You're 67 years old.
Do it, Jim. Do it, Jim.
What are you doing trying to reef this thing into the back of your truck? And then fortunately, I didn't have a helper. Fortunately, a guy came in. I was storage unit 276. A guy showed up in 274 with his wife, and I just said, "Hey, man, can you help me with this?" And he was like, "Yeah, what are you doing, man? I'll help you." Yeah. So I had some help, but yeah, moving at 67, it's not fun at any age. But when you're 67 years old, you've had so many different moves over the course of your lifetime that you're just like, fuck it, man. I don't want to do this shit anymore.
Hire somebody, man. I hate moving. No one likes moving. There's nothing fun about moving, man.
No, and so I'm hoping we can get back in the house today, but
okay,
yeah. Right now I'm in a hotel room.
Now I think Sugar Shane wants to know, they live leash free. Are we off leash in the Holiday Inn? Well,
holidays? I got a quick. I know you're trying to shorten these things up, but I got another dog story for you that might be entertaining.
No. I love dog stories because it always involves you doing something that you probably shouldn't have done. What is this week's episode of? What is this week's episode of? What did River and Sky do that annoyed someone?
Well, I was at the storage unit, and usually I'll let the dogs. They come with me, and then I'll let them kind of romp around a little bit. And they usually go to the end of the storage unit where there's a cyclone fence. Well, on the other side of this cyclone fence is the freeway, and so I look down there periodically while I'm loading stuff into the ridgeline, and I see them both, and they're kind of rummaging around in the grass, and then I get like 5 or 10 minutes later, I get a call from my wife, and she goes, "Do you have Sky?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I have Sky." And she goes, "No, you don't." And I go, "Well, yeah, I do. I brought her here with me." And she goes, "I just got a call from a woman on the freeway who picked Sky up because she was running loose on the freeway." Now, I know there's probably some listeners going, well, what do you expect? You deserve that, Jim, for letting your dogs run leash free. Puck, I got to show you this cyclone fence. Wait a minute. Before you agree with the listener that's thinking that,
they've got a point.
They do have a really good point, but they also don't know that this cyclone fence had like a 6-inch from the post to the unit where it enclosed the thing. Sky wedged herself in like a rat. She wedged herself through there.
It's always
there was
somebody else's
food
fault.
item out there in the near the freeway. So the lady called my wife. My wife called me, and then I go down to the cyclone fence, and then here's the lady, I can see her car parked up on the shoulder of the freeway, and she's got Sky by the collar, and she's kind of bringing her down to me, and then Sky wedged herself back through the fence back to me, and it was a happy ending, but that could have been awful. And so everybody who says God, Jim should keep his dog on a leash, they're right on that occasion for sure. So yeah, it was, yeah. My wife almost threw up when she found out what had happened.
When are you going to learn your lesson?
Well, I hope it doesn't take something tragic like that.
There's Kathy checking.
Wifey was not happy on that one.
Yeah, she wasn't happy.
Yeah. Thanks, Kathy. Exactly right. You just gotta, buddy. Like you're out.
Well, how was I to know that the damn fence had an opening? I mean, come on. I looked at cyclone fence. It's 8 feet tall. I knew Sky couldn't jump it. And then I go down. I'll show you the opening. You won't believe it. And she somehow. I mean, there was probably like a Jack in the Box wrapper out there that she was going after.
I don't need to see the opening, man. I love you to death, but
No, you don't. I wonder about that sometimes. You say that all the time, but you don't show it.
Yes,
I mean, you can say that shit all you want, but you need to show it more. Actions speak louder than words. You ever heard that one?
To show it? Here's what I want. I'm showing it now. Just take care of your dog, please, before something bad happens like that. He gets hit
If
by
you're
a
my
car.
dog, you think I'm the greatest owner in the world, though.
Yeah, well, until you let him roam around. It's one thing when you're like on a trail, but not when you're like in a facility where there's a freeway.
Well, there's a cyclone fence, and that had never happened before.
Okay, all right. It's
Yeah.
what I was gonna say is I do love you, but it's always somebody else's fault. It's never.
Well, okay, but I want to tell you that I appreciate you giving me the time to talk about that.
Okay.
Because it lessens the amount of time that I'm gonna have to talk about that big blockbuster NBA trade.
It's a
because
blockbuster trade.
as you know, like back in the '90s when I covered the Sonics, I knew everything there was to know about the NBA, and now I know next to nothing.
Okay,
so
but-
do you
but-
think there's a single listener out there that's going, do you think that Luka Anthony Davis trade?
No. I'm not
You think-
asking you.
you
I'm
think
not-
anybody out there wants to hear
I'm
what I think about that?
asking you. Well, but that goes for anything sports related. I don't really with you. I'm just saying.
What? Wait a minute. Like you're saying they'd rather hear Rob Staten talk about the Seahawks than me or Tim Booth or Curtis Crabtree? Like those guys know
I
more
don't
about
know.
the team than I do, and I would agree with you.
But I think you have a good perspective to bring it back to when you covered the NBA.
No,
to sit
but
there
that was
and
30 years ago. Nobody
Oh,
wants
no,
to hear
no.
about that.
But no, it's not about that. It's about what's the equivalent of a player that was traded at 25 who was like the best player, arguably the best player in the league. It just doesn't. This doesn't happen. Doesn't happen a lot. Before we do that, though, and I'm wondering this because you've said this like 15 times, and so I'm with Joseph on this one. What the hell is a cyclone fence? I don't know what that
Hey,
is.
Joseph, come on, man. Everybody knows what a cyclone fence is.
I don't.
Well, Google the damn thing if you don't know what it is.
What is a cyclone
I'm
fence?
talking to you, not Joseph. Joseph, I'm sorry. I'll explain it to you.
What is it?
No, wait, you don't know what a cyclone fence is?
I don't. No.
Okay, those fences they're metal and they're wire and they have triangle. You see them around schoolyards all the time.
Oh, okay. I just call it a chain link fence, not a cyclone
Chain
fence.
link fence,
Do you have
okay.
to it makes you sound smarter to say a cyclone fence?
No, it's always been a cyclone fence to me.
Okay. All right.
Well, let me Google it. Maybe I'm off.
No,
on
I
that.
think you're right. I've just never heard of it called
Kath,
a
am I
cyclone
wrong on that?
fence.
Is it a cyclone fence? I always called it a cyclone fence.
No, everyone is agreeing. Chain link fence. Everyone is saying the
Not
same
everyone.
thing.
There's got to be some
No.
listener out there that's saying, "Yeah, God, Jim's right about cyclone."
No,
Let me
they're
look.
saying that you're not listening, per usual. They're saying the cyclone fence is a chain link fence. That's it. That's all they're saying. I've just
Yeah,
never heard.
I'm looking at it. Cyclone fence. I just Googled it, and there's a picture of a damn cyclone fence in a schoolyard.
That's not paying attention. You're just not paying attention.
No,
Let's move.
I'm not. Yeah.
It's a chain link fence. I'm just saying I've never heard it been called a cyclone fence.
What? Really?
Never, ever. I've never heard
Okay,
that.
come on. There's got to be somebody in their 60s out there. Somebody chime in and support me, would you?
Yes, people
Like
are.
somebody out there that's listening right now, I want to know, like, when Moore said cyclone fence, I knew what he was talking about.
People are agreeing with you. I'm just saying I have never heard of it. This will be the cyclone fence show of record.
I wasn't trying to sound like I'm smarter than everyone. I'm going to say cyclone instead of chain link fence.
All 22 breakdown of fences next with. Hey, by the way, if you have a cyclone fence company and would like to advertise, Puck at pucksports.com.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay,
Wow,
so I'm
that
asking you,
surprises me.
honestly, what would be when you were covering, give me the years you covered the NBA.
90 to 96.
90 to 96. So it wouldn't really be Jordan. What would the equivalent be back then? A 25-year-old superstar. I mean superstar is just kicked to the curb by his team and then goes, is traded. I mean, is traded for, Anthony Davis is a very good player, but we're talking Luka Doncic. We're talking about one of the greatest top 3 players in the world right now. And then you take into his age, we're talking about a guy max contract, the face of the franchise, all that. This just doesn't really happen all that much.
Yeah.
Ever.
I'd like to play along with you and think of a superstar back in the 90s, and give you an equivalent and,
Well,
do
just,
that. But what I'm saying, I'd rather hear what you think of the trade. Like, because to me, it looked like the Lakers got fleeced, but I don't know, I mean, or not the Lakers, the Mavs got fleeced. The Mavs got fleeced. And I wasn't aware that there were concerns about his conditioning. I kind of like that. I like that he's just kind of chubby and, he should be in better shape and maybe he wouldn't be injured as much.
Yeah,
and yet he's still one of the best. Like, what is he, top 5? Are both these guys top 5, top 10?
Oh, top 10 for sure. Davis, maybe not top 5. I mean, but listen, I just think it's telling that an organization has decided to move. I mean, again, he is 25 years old. They've decided to move off a 25-year-old. He hasn't even reached his. I mean, here's the thing: he's not even in the best years of his career potentially in the NBA, and they have been willing to move him because they are concerned about something, whatever that concern is. I don't think it's a cyclone fence, whether he doesn't like a cyclone fence. Whatever the concern is about Luka, maybe it's his health, the conditioning, attitude, whatever it is.
Have you heard all that, though? Have you heard that there's all these concerns about Luka?
Yeah. That's public stuff. Like there's always been concerns about his condition.
But like, so if he was in better shape, he'd play 82 games and average 35 a game instead of 28 or something?
Jim, if he was in, let's say he took care of his body like LeBron does, right? And this actually, personally for him, might be the best thing in the world unless LeBron gets traded. And there's already rumors everywhere that it's the Warriors and all that stuff. But let's say he stays with the Lakers and LeBron. It's the best thing personally that could happen to Luka Doncic because he gets to see up close and personal a guy that, devours working out and training and his body and what he puts into it.
Plus, he won't stand for that in a teammate who doesn't do that, I would think.
Well, and the thing is, it's a guy that plays at the level he plays at the age of 40. I mean, here's the thing. At 40, he's in better condition than Luka at 25. And it's not even close. Not even close. So if Luka can take anything away from what LeBron can show him, I mean, if Luka was in better shape, Jim, I don't have his numbers up in front of me, he'd average a triple-double. He would, he could average 40 points a game. He could dish out 10-plus assists, 10-plus rebounds easily in his sleep.
I'm assuming Maverick fans aren't happy about this.
I wouldn't think not. I mean, what would you be happy if your face of your team, a superstar, is traded for Anthony Davis? And here's the thing: if I'm the Lakers, or they traded the wrong guy. That was the other thing. They should have traded LeBron. That should have been the trade. You should have teamed up Luka with Anthony Davis. That's what it should have been. That should have been.
Yeah, but the Mavs wouldn't have gone for that.
To get and maybe not because of the age and all that. But it's interesting. It's a real. I've been searching because it's not Jordan because Luka's not Jordan, but I'm just whoever that second fiddle or that second great player during that era in which you covered, to be moved like that when he hasn't even reached his peak of a basketball player is insane. It's crazy.
Well, I would just be thrilled. I'd be thrilled if I were a Lakers fan, though. Especially,
of course. Or yes, I agree with you. If I'm a Lakers fan and I'm saying, okay, we just got the best young talent in the league. I mean, a consensus, perennial not all-star, MVP candidate. We just got him at 25.
Yeah.
Now, if it all works out and he gets in shape and he dedicates dedicates himself to being the best player that he can be, it doesn't matter, what they pay him. I mean, he's in line for a max deal, like $300+ million.
I saw that might be in jeopardy now that he got traded, though.
Oh, because they can't. One
of the stories I read that I was also flabbergasted and astonished and all those kinds of words when I heard what he was in line for. I mean, these NBA salaries are nuts.
Oh, well, it's crazy.
5 years, $345 million.
Yeah, the NBA. I mean, that's one thing. The NBA salary.
$1 million a game, 82 games. That's $70 million. That's a 70-game season. That'd be $1 million a game practically.
Yeah. I don't think. I mean, just thinking about it, I don't think we've ever seen this in sports.
No, okay. If you're the Mavericks, and I'm sure they're having press conferences and talking about it right now, but if you're them, I'm sure you're explaining that, hey, man, after a while, we just thought, okay, we're going to do what we can right now because this guy just isn't doing what he should be doing to stay in shape and avoid these injuries that he's been having. That's the only explanation you can have, because I imagine they're fast forwarding thinking, God, when this guy's 30, he's going to be a shell of himself the way he takes care of himself. So he's at a max right now. Let's get what we can get for him right now, because down the road, he's going to break down and we're not going to get anything for him.
Well, and hey, if we want to invest $300+ million in someone,
it's guaranteed.
Well, yeah, and like if he's not taking care of himself and we just hand him $300 million, where's the motivation to get into better shape? Where's the motivation to take better care of yourself? You got paid. There is no motivation anymore. It's all guaranteed. And now keep in mind too this. Mark Cuban he owns a minority share of the team. He sold the team. So Mark Cuban doesn't run the team anymore. Mark Cuban doesn't have final say over the team. It's Miriam Adelson, it's the Vegas connection, and then Patrick Dumont. They own the majority of the team. So Cuban still has a small piece, but not, and certainly does not have final say on it anymore. So they bought it, and they probably said, because I don't think this happens. This trade does not happen with Cuban. And I think that now that it's different ownership, they're just like, no, I'm not going to write that check. Not if he's pudgy and looks like this guy that's talking right now. That would be me. No, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, don't you think if you're Luka, you'd have a little more pride than that? Like if I signed a contract like that, or even whatever he's playing for right now, I'd be thinking, God, I want to prove to people that I'm worth what they're paying me. I mean, is that stupid for me to think that? Oh God.
When was Kareem traded?
Oh, jeez.
How old was he when he got
Bucks to
traded?
the Lakers?
I mean, this is it. I mean, because Kareem in 1975, he was already a 2-time MVP and an NBA champion, and he was traded. He was traded to the Lakers. So
I saw a lot of people on Twitter were talking about, give me the NHL equivalent or the MLB equivalent or NFL.
Well,
what would the NFL equivalent be of this?
At 25?
Yeah, with this trade in the NBA.
But Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, it'd be Mahomes for who?
Well,
or I saw Joe Burrow for Lamar Jackson.
It would be, Mahomes at 25 for someone what's a great quarterback still at 30. Find a guy who's at 30 years old, still kind of in his prime. I guess maybe when Rodgers was 30 or something like that.
For Josh Allen, maybe Mahomes for Allen.
So when Kareem was 27 when he got traded, so yeah.
Well, Kareem at that time, there was nobody better than him.
Yeah, it's this is wild. When I saw
so
that,
you thought it was just like. It wasn't true. It was like
I thought it was fake. Of course, I thought it was fake when I saw that. I'm like, we got home Friday night. It was Friday night, right? We got home Friday night, and from Ballard, a little gymnastics meet. Shout out Beavers, still undefeated. Senior night, great senior night over there at Ballard High School. Got home, and me and the Vampire owner just checking out, flipping on SportsCenter real quick, and then we're like, really? That's not true. That can't be true. And yeah, turned out it was unbelievable. Just crazy.
Have they played games for their new teams yet?
They have not. No.
Okay. All right.
They have not.
So some intrigue in the NBA there.
Well, and that's the thing about the NBA. I know there's a love-hate. There's a hate for it out here, and I get it, and I totally understand it what the league did. But the thing about the league is the drama. The drama is just intense around the league, and now you've got a scenario where, I don't know, does LeBron want to be moved? Now there's rumors swirling LeBron to the Warriors to team up with Steph Curry. There is Jimmy Butler maybe to the Warriors, but then Jimmy Butler saying he doesn't want to go to the Warriors because he doesn't want to sign there. So don't trade me there because I won't sign there. Then there's also more rumors coming out that there would be a reunion with Kevin Durant and the Warriors. Potentially going there. So we'll see. Here's why I would ask you this. I know you don't follow it, and so I'm not asking. And listen, I'm not going to sit here. Who won the trade? I don't care about that. Let's break it down. Nuts and bolts. Who won it? I'd ask you this from a reporter's perspective. Okay. Imagine being, because the guy who brought it, do you know who that Shams Charania is?
Is he the new ESPN super Schefter guy for the NBA?
Yes. Imagine being him and getting that information, and you're like, oh my God, because he's the one who broke the story.
He'll never have a bigger story than that. And that's, from a reporter's perspective, I can talk about that because and I didn't have that many scoops in my career, but when I had the few that I had, it was kind of cool to know that you had something that no one else did. And that's a big deal. That's a feather in your cap. But then it's so different now than when I was doing reporting because you could sit on it for a little while. But now I'm sure that guy had to just like, bang, I got to get this on Twitter as quick as I can.
Yeah, you can't. You can't sit on it anymore. But yeah, I just think it would be, from a reporter's perspective, when you get something like that, and this is without a doubt one of the certainly top 5, top 3 biggest trades in the history of the league, and you're the one that gets to type it out and put it out on social media, and just the second you put that out, I mean, the course of the league changes. You yourself as a reporter changed because you broke the story, so it's...
Well, on the other side of it, Puck, is that when you're the reporter that doesn't have the story first, and how bad you feel about that, you're thinking, God, that was really good that so-and-so got that and broke it, but I wish it had been me. Because, and then, you might have an editor going, God, what happened? How come you didn't have that? Like if you're covering the Sonics and there was a big trade and, Glenn Nelson had it or Mike Kahn at the time.
What was do you remember, can you recall the biggest scoop you've ever had?
There's only one that...
Wait, hold on.
There's only...
Excuse me. I hold on. I had a little interference in my ear. I thought I heard you said you only had one.
Well, there's only one that comes to mind, and it's not going to be... No, you're not going to sit there and go, God, that's just like Luka getting traded. Way to go, Jim. No, it's not that good. I just got it. Somehow I knew about Bucky Jacobsen. Where's Bucky now? What's he doing? What is Bucky doing? He still has a job, and I don't.
I have not heard where he has landed. Okay, so you had heard that Bucky Jacobsen.
I had a tip from a guy, Bucky Jacobsen's agent. Somehow I got to know him. And this was before Bucky was on the team. I think he was in AAA or something. And the agent called me and said, hey, Jim, Bucky's moving up to the Mariners. Just want to let you know. And the Mariners are going to cut Olerud. And they're going to make room for Bucky. And John Olerud was a pretty big name at the time. And being a Coug and everything. And so when Bucky came up, Olerud was out. That's the one scoop I can think of that I had. You like that one?
I think on par.
You're hoping for more?
I think on par. I think when you look back at your 40-plus years of reporting, and I think that your big scoop was, and I love Bucky Jacobsen being called up. That's a good scoop. It's better than I don't got anything.
I remember I hung up, when I hung up, or I think you had like those kind of phones where you could hang up back then. I thought, damn. I got a little bit of a scoop here.
Yeah.
You kind of get the blood flowing a little bit, and that's what, it's fun. The thing about being a reporter, though, I always got a bigger kick out of writing a story that I was more proud of than any reporting that I did. And I think I say that because, God, reporting takes work.
You didn't have any. So wait a minute. There was nothing when you were covering the Sonics. Nothing. Something happened with Gary or none of that.
God, there was. I don't know.
You just can't recall it.
Glenn Nelson usually he was covering the team for the Times, and he used to probably beat me more than I beat him.
Glenn Nelson, who covered the Sonics for the Times.
Yeah. And then Mike Kahn, he was always bird dogging stuff too for the News Tribune.
Did you cross over with Frank Hughes at the News Tribune? He was always Frank was always kind of the go-to guy I remember as being the Sonics kind of reporter.
Well, yeah, Frank at the News Tribune, he did a great job. I was on the beat, I think, in 2000, 2001 season, because Ron Tillery left to work for the Memphis paper and cover the Grizzlies, so I had to come back and work for 1 year in the NBA.
Yeah.
The guy I didn't worry about whatsoever, though, was Nuno Damasio at the Seattle Times. I mean, Nuno always showed up late for practice and everything, and I love Nuno, and so I love ripping him. You know, you love guys, and you rip them because you love them. But I didn't worry about him scooping me. I thought, God, if I get scooped by Nuno Damasio, I'm hitting bottom, man.
Hey,
but Frank, one time though, Frank, I still hold this against him. We'd go on the road and play some pickup games and that kind of thing, and I was starting to get a little chubby at that point in the early 2000s.
Okay.
And Frank one time told Nuno, he said, I'll bet you it's been 10 years now since Jim's been able to see his own dick. Because I was like, well, Frank, I can see it in the mirror. Because but when you look down, you can't see it. And you know what I did? I got naked that night, and I went, God, I wonder if Frank's right. And so I thought, hey, fuck you, Frank, you are right.
Yeah, Frank. Did you go back to Frank the other day? Like, Frank, you son of a bitch, you were right. You were right.
I mean, but when I look back, and I'm glad you brought all that up, or maybe I brought it up. It's so much fun covering a team and going on the road. It's not just you're courtside watching these games and writing about them, and then going to bars and drinking with the other beat writers, and then getting on a plane and doing all of the same stuff the next night. It was so much fun.
So when you write your book and you get to the chapter of your biggest scoop of your career, how many pages do you devote to Bucky being called up from AAA?
Maybe one paragraph. Hey, Bucky was a cult hero though at one point, wasn't he?
He was. I remember. I covered the team. I was in there. I remember that. It was.
Everybody wanted him to do well because everybody likes those big, brawny kind of guys.
Well, and the team was just immensely unlikable. It was immensely unlikable, and they were terrible, and people needed something. Mariner fans needed something to gravitate toward that summer. And for a brief, what was he, 9-10 game stretch, he was the beacon of just fun in a miserable baseball season. So
the bat looked like a toothpick in his hands. I mean, he was just such a big guy. And then, to meet him in person at KJR when we worked there, I just used to look at him every day and go, Jesus Christ, you're a huge human being.
He's huge. He's a huge man. We got, God, what else do we got going on today on the show? All right. How was February so far? We're 3 days in. How much you been drinking? A lot?
Well, okay. I had 4 drinks on the first, which was Saturday.
4 drinks. What we have?
2 Jack Daniels on the rocks, and then 2 beers, and then last night I had 2 Jack Daniels on the rocks. So I've had 6 total.
So we're back on. We're back on the horse. We're galloping to the finish line.
Nah, my new thing is that however many days are in the month, that's the number of drinks that I want to have in that month or less. So like there's 28
drink a day?
28 days in February. I'm only going to have 28 drinks this month. Wow, it doesn't matter if I have 6 one night, I got to have 0 on other nights to make up for it.
Folks, we are witnessing dedication, commitment to one's craft right before our
and then like when March gets here, I'll be like, all right, cool, I can have 31 this month.
Back up to 31, and then it dips back down.
But that's okay. Come on, make fun of me if you want, but if you had 1 drink a day, that's moderation, isn't it? And that's what they always say. The doctors, they always say like all these different things. 1 or 2 drinks a day. So if it's 1 a day, I think that's okay.
Yeah.
0 a day for 31 days wasn't much fun though.
No, you didn't like it. Yeah, I got you. You didn't like it. Not at all. Hey, the other thing is Mike Holmgren this week. Thursday we should learn the news. Mike Holmgren is going to go into the Hall of Fame. That's pretty cool. We got a chance to work with him, alongside him, and that was just a great pleasure. And I'm happy for him and thrilled, and don't want to jinx it, but I think it sounds like he's going to get in. Maybe something weird happens, but to Mike and Kathy and to his entire family and to everyone associated with him, just a long overdue enshrinement there into Canton.
Well, that's the thing, and that's the word, overdue for Mike Holmgren to enter the Hall of Fame. And you're right, we were fortunate enough to work with him when he would come in, and you were there a lot longer than I was, and but just he was always cordial and
great guy.
Yeah, I remember when I was talking to him all the time, I'm thinking, Jesus, God, Mike Holmgren's taking time out of his day to talk to me, and he makes you feel, and this is because this is the way he does feel, like you're the only person in that room.
Correct.
And he's actually interested in your life somehow. And so
Correct.
it's kind of cool that he's got those average guy traits about him, and yet he's way, 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 way above average as an NFL coach and what he accomplished at Green Bay and here in Seattle. And so, yeah, I'm thrilled for him. Yeah, I was going to try and give Ashley a call and, try and get his number and congratulate him personally when it happens, because he's just so damn likable. I know he was different as a coach. We saw him, just ranting and raving on the sideline and all that, but what a terrific human being he is.
He is an absolute, just a gem of a person. Absolute gem. He is, as whether it comes across on the radio, comes across on TV with him, he is, which he comes across as just nice and funny, and he's got this wonderful sense of humor. It's just even better off the air. He just really is one of the nicest, kindest people you've ever met. And at the same time as this massive man with these massive hands and football coach who, having covered him back in the day when I first came to Seattle, and you, of course, being around him as a reporter, I mean, intimidating and get after people. He had I don't want to say a dark side, but he had a side where he'd chew your ass out, his players. But I always thought he did a great job of chewing them out, but then after practice, it was done. He'd grab them, still love you. Well, he expected, as close to perfection as possible. He was very demanding in that way, but I mean, that's what led him to be such a successful coach. And the fact that it's been this long and it's taken this long to hopefully get him in. I mean, his tree is, it's right up there with Bill Walsh and Paul Brown and the greatest coaching trees in the history of this sport. I mean, listen, there are two guys that are coaching this week are a direct descendant of his coaching tree. Andy Reid worked under him, and Nick Sirianni through the whole coaching tree of Reid down to Doug Peterson, to, I think it's to Brian Daboll, Shane Steichen, to Nick Sirianni. I mean, it's the two guys that will be on the sidelines are from his coaching tree. So his influence is all across the sport. So I hope he gets the great news on Thursday, 6 o'clock, NFL Network, where they'll make the announcement.
Well, and his acceptance speech will just be off the charts. And I'm sure he'll be emotional. There'll be some tears. And I just think back, just as from a reporter's perspective, how I used to look forward to his press conferences every week. And, Pete Carroll was great too, but there was just something about Holmgren where you just felt like you were sitting down having a conversation with him when he was answering questions. And he never made you feel little by asking some stupid question, No. So I can't say enough good things about him, because I was just like you when he came to Seattle. I thought, God, Mike Holmgren's coming to Seattle?
Yeah.
And then I'd interview him one-on-one a few times, and I'd just stand there and look at him, and he just was so nice to deal with all the time.
Yeah, great, just a great dude. You brought up Pete Carroll. What about the reunion? Not ever reunion. How about Chip Kelly and Pete Carroll together in Vegas? That great division of coaches just gets another one. Chip Kelly, $6 million, highest paid offense coordinator in the NFL.
They're giving him $6 million?
$6 million.
That's awesome. I love it. I'm going to watch the Raiders as closely as the Seahawks this year. I think it's going to be fun. Especially if our guy Gardner gets the job, and are they going to cut him though next month?
I would assume so.
Why?
I just don't, because he's not a future quarterback there.
Don't answer that.
Don't mention
There's
it.
a good reason to answer why they're going to do it, but none of us Cougs want to see that happen. Just let the Minshew Mania thing play out, run its course. Come on.
Maybe he will. Maybe he's a huge Minshew fan.
Well, what are they going to do otherwise? I saw one of these mock drafts, the ESPN Plus guy, whoever the hell that is. I'm sure he knows his stuff. They got Sanders going to the Raiders.
Shador Sanders. Oh, okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Maybe that'd be a good fit.
God, that'd be fun, having Dion come to Vegas all the time, coaching the games.
How would he go? He's not going to go to Vegas.
Yes, he is. He's going to coach the Buffaloes on Saturday and then hop a flight to Vegas on Sunday.
Just be like the coach's dad, like on the sideline, yelling and screaming at Pete. Put my kid in.
No, but that'd be perfect, wouldn't it? I think it's great. I think it's great that he hired Chip Kelly.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be fun to watch, and hopefully it'll work out.
Grubby's back. We tried to get him at SC, but he said no. Jen Cohen couldn't get Grubb to UNC. So Grubb is headed back to Alabama, and I would assume he's going to be the new offense coordinator there for the Tide. I would assume that also Scott Huff will go with him because the Seahawks made a couple of hires today. John Benton is their new offensive line coach, so Scott Huff is out, and then Andrew. I think it's Janoko. Andrew Janoko is the new quarterbacks coach. So,
who's that new O-line coach? John
Benton.
John Benton.
Mike Benton. Ladies and gentlemen, third period almost underway. But before we get there, have you seen my new Eddie Bauer backpack? Look at this thing. It can hold my computer. It can also hold my tennis shoes. I've got dress shoes on right now. A suit jacket as well. And my notes for the Kraken. All in this wonderful travel Eddie Bauer backpack. Hashtag ad. And after the game, another Kraken loss, by the way. They're not very good this year. They made a mistake by firing the previous guy, and really the problem is Ron Francis. I'm going to celebrate with a Dick's Deluxe at Dick's. Hashtag ad.
In 3 words, describe tonight's Kraken's game.
Shitty, shitty, shitty.
Oh, God. We love Mike Benton, though, don't we? You think we'll love John Benton as much as we love Mike Benton?
Yeah, we love Benton. We love him to death. Just always that
cheese. And you're mocking the shit out of him.
Always that cheese dick-eating grin he's got on.
Were you ever that passionate about what you covered?
No.
I wasn't either.
No, that's not true. No.
Hey, it's Jim Moore. Got the Sonics. It was a tough loss tonight. I never thought that. I just kind of went home and.
By the way, I am brought to you by Jack Daniels. When we're over here, I'm going to pour myself another one. Yeah. Hashtag ad.
George Carl and Terry Stotts were out cocktailing tonight. Tough defeat.
Stotts. Hey, you're going to like this. This is going to come out tomorrow, by the way. It's going to come out tomorrow. Recorded this last week. It was the my Cougar coordinator show where everybody was doing the Jimmy Rogers car wash. Asked them all that. I said, I don't want that. I want Jesse Bobbit, who's the defensive coordinator, and Danny Freund, who is the new offensive coordinator of the Cougs. This will come out tomorrow. Here's a little snippet for you Coug fans, what to expect from Danny Freund. And the one and only. No, we don't want to see your junk. Don't lean back too far, all right? No. Danny Freund and also Jesse Bobbit.
Yeah, I want them to say or feel, and exactly that, feel our defense, right? At the end of the day, win or lose, I want them to say, man, those dudes flew around. They didn't quit. There was a physicality to them. My body hurts, right? Or we want our guys, we want our defense to fly around like that defense. And that was something in past years that, I would say that people did say. And so we took pride in that. And we look forward to it, kind of instilling that culture and mentality here.
Watch the NFL game. It's a passing league, but a lot of that passing is set up off of the run game, off the play action, off the nakeds, moving the pocket. Like even guys like Mahomes is an air raid guy. And you've been able to see kind of his development in the NFL, playing within a huddle system, being able to kind of utilize those concepts. So I think, on that end of it, as far as development and getting guys ready to play at the next level potentially, I think what we're going to do might actually help some of those guys in terms of playing under center and being able to do some of that stuff and have some variety in how we do it in terms of concepts and formations, motions, and that sort of stuff. We will run the football. We will be physical. We're going to be explosive in the pass game, and we're going to have fun doing it.
That is the voice of Danny Freund speaking there with the hat on, and then Jesse Bobbit. If you're watching, Jesse Bobbit is the new defensive coordinator. That will come out tomorrow, so look for it there. No live show tomorrow, so that will just come out tomorrow at 10 a.m. along with, I believe, John Canzano. We'll record with John. So it was fun. The fun conversation with both Danny and Jesse. And Jesse had already spent time in Pullman, by the way. He was a graduate assistant under, actually when Rolovich came, and then worked a year under Jake Dicker. But fun guys, both fun guys to talk to, and gives about 30 minutes, gives insight of what the offense and defense is going to look like and changes. And the biggest change, obviously, is going to be on offensive, just how different it is going to look than what people have been expecting here for the past decade or so. So it was fun to catch up with those guys.
Yeah, it'll be fun to see if that can actually work. I mean, the first season it's going to be a work in progress, I think, because you talked about it, the offensive lineman recruited for a different system, and so it's one thing. I mean, I think every coach wants to be physical and violent, and run game between the tackles, all that kind of stuff. But
you have to have the guys to do it.
Yeah,
you have to.
Do.
And they've been recruiting guys that just aren't that. So I mean, the
and
previous steps.
Puck, I can't be the only one that when you mention the name Bobbit, and then when you mention a snippet of what we're going to get from him.
Oh my! That's why you were laughing.
Yeah, because I was thinking, God, as soon as you hear the name Bobbit, you think about the guy that got the dick cut off, and then when you said snippet,
I didn't even think about it.
Yeah, I can't be the only one. But whenever I hear the name Bobbit, don't you think about that?
What was her name? Lorraine Bobbitt?
Yeah, Lorena, I think.
Lorena?
I forget.
Yeah, Lorena Bobbitt, right?
But did you ask the defensive coordinator? Does he ever
related to her?
No, not related. But I mean, every time his name comes up, it's like, oh God, you're not the guy that got his dick cut off, are you?
No, I didn't bring that up to him. Hey, Jesse, congratulations getting the defense coordinator job at Washington State. By the way, you weren't the one that they cut the dick off, right? Not you. That's not you, correct?
Hey, Jesse, I want to ask you something. Why is your nickname 1 Inch anyway?
1 Inch. He'll probably tell you. Yeah, there you go. Hey, Jim, I'll transition to this. It was a sad day, Sunday, a sad day for me. It was the final Little League assessment day, right? Because we can't call it tryouts. Assessment day / draft for me. Being in Little League for, God, I don't know, what are we, 6 years now? 6 years, the final day where you get a time and judge 11-year-olds and 12-year-olds, and then a group of dads get together to go sit at a bar, and then with their sheets of evaluations discuss, well, I'm not going to take Jimmy because he doesn't get his glove down, and I don't think he really gets his hips through and turns on the ball. But his dad's great, so maybe we think about drafting him. So none of that's all over. Final day yesterday. As a Ballard baseball board member, which I am, my role is a player agent. That's my role. I am in charge of the whole draft day or the assessments, putting it on, and it was very bittersweet yesterday, being the final time that I'll ever do it.
Well,
last year in Little League.
You're going to have a lot of those moments, but listen, as I sit here right now, I'm envious of you that you have one more season of Little League, and after Little League, the 13, 14, 15, whatever you call that program, middle school, and then summer ball, and then you have high school, and then maybe junior college after that. Like, I was lucky enough to have that kind of bonus. But as I sit here right now, February, they'd start the junior college season in February, and this is going to be the first season without baseball for Kathy and I for, I don't know, the last 10 years our kids were always playing, maybe 12 years. So I'm already missing it. And you're right, though, that last day of Little League, it's going to be tough. I mean, last draft, okay, but all these lasts that come up,
but the draft,
it's sad. It's sad. I still remember, I've already told the story, but I'll tell it one more time, just leaving the West Seattle playfield over there at Alki, the last All-Star game the boys played in. I was like going, damn. I stopped the truck, looked back at the field, and goes, Little League's over. Little League is special. Little League is special. It really is.
It was fun. So we put it on, and credits all those kids that came out. We started at 10, wrapped up at like 3:30. Bunch of just 1,000 kids coming out, and God, the first two waves of 10 and 11 and almost 12 had to endure snow. I mean, snow.
Do you think there's ever been a dad anywhere in Little League, somewhere in the country that loves his kid, but his kid's not very good, and lets the kid play on another team because he's trying to win, and he knows with his kid that he's like,
I don't think it works that way. I don't think you would just let your kid be on another team. You have to take your kid, for God's sakes.
God.
Come on.
We had a coach in Renton Little League. I won't mention his name, but when we had All-Stars, the All-Star team,
sure,
he put his kid on the All-Star team. The kid just wasn't very good. It was so obvious that he shouldn't have been on the team, and that was a tough one for a lot of us.
Well, it's a tough one, because if you're going to coach, and then it's like, well, then my kid should be on it.
I wouldn't want my kid to be on an all-star team just because I'm the dad who's coaching the team, though. Would you? If
You
my
just
kid
gotta-
didn't deserve to be on it?
I agree. You just got to make sure that they're good enough. Like whoever's going to coach is got to be good enough. But yeah, so it'll be good. We'll keep you updated when that starts, and it'll be crossing over. I'll give you an update on the Whitman Wildcats JV basketball this weekend. JVC, which is our the most.
What makes you think listeners care about the outcomes of those games?
I don't. They don't. But I'm just telling.
I know.
You.
What you just like.
I want
throwing it
people,
out there just
I
for the
want
hell of
people
it?
live vicariously through us. JVC romped to their first victory this weekend, 42-10 over Blaine Middle School. So congratulations to the JVC team. They played a great game. Great game.
Wait a minute, 42-10. Did you run up the score? Did the other coach shake your hand afterwards?
Did not run up the score.
Yeah, you did.
No, I didn't.
42-10. I wouldn't have shaken your hand after the game.
How do you run up the score? There was no running up the score.
You won by 32 points. The other team only scored 10.
There's nothing we could have done and let we just dribble the ball and just knock it out of bounds. We didn't press. We didn't do any of that.
How bad was that other team?
They had like 6 kids, and none of them had played basketball before. You could probably tell. So it was rough. Then a great game for the JV. We lost by 6, 38-32 to Eagle Staff Middle School, but it was a great game. Great game.
Okay.
Awesome game. But you know what?
Have you gotten a technical foul yet?
No. I'm not going to get a technical foul in middle school basketball. God, it's not that important.
You might. I've seen your temper, like every day at 9:57.
Well, just show up on time and have your equipment work, and it would be fine. All right, you're the best.
You love me to death.
I love you to death. We love you one and all. Hopefully, we'll talk to you on Wednesday. Maybe you'll be back in the house.
Okay, Puck. Take care. Go Cougs.
Go Cougs. There he is, Jim Moore, the go-to guy with us on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And, I guess we're back up on Twitter. There was a problem, it looked like, with Twitter for a while going down, but now we are back up on all the streaming platforms. All right. The Ground Puck Seahawks podcast every Monday with Tim Booth and Curtis Crabtree. We've got a couple more visits with these guys. Caught up earlier this morning with them because they had stuff going on. They said, hey, can we record and tape? I said, no problem. We talk about the new hires for the Seahawks, the Klint Kubiak quarterback decision, what he wants to do, what the offensive system is going to look like, the changing evolution of football, Chip Kelly to the Raiders, Super Bowl predictions, and everything coming up right now. Ground Puck Seahawks podcast with Tim Booth and Curtis Crabtree.
Drink Georgetown Tavern Beer, your new locally brewed domestic-style lager. 4.2% alcohol. Cheap, good, local.
It's a Monday. That means it's a Ground Puck Seahawks podcast time with the fabulous duo here of Curtis Crabtree and Tim Booth. We got lots to cover, boys. We got maybe a Klint Kubiak quarterback decision to make. Seahawks have made some hires today, rounding out Kubiak's staff. The fighting chipster is back in the NFL, and he's with Pete Carroll. Mike Holmgren, important week for him. And then lastly, we got to get some Super Bowl predictions from the guys. Tim Booth, Seattle Times, covers the Seahawks, the Mariners, the Kraken, Husky Sports, pickleball. He covers everything there at the Seattle Times, seattletimes.com. And Curtis Crabtree, he does the same thing as well. He covers it all there for Fox 13. Our weekly chat with these guys brought to you by Georgetown Brewery, locally owned and operated by 2 diehard Huskies, Manny and Roger. Check out their great beer, Manny's, Rogers, Johnny Utah, and of course their brand new tavern beer, domestic style lager, easy drinking domestic style lager, georgetownbeer.com. All right, boys, how are we? Everything good? Curtis, Tim, we're all good?
I think we've both probably recovered from the food coma that we had on Friday when we happened to run into you at Jack's Barbecue down in Soto and had a glorious time hanging out with a few folks.
Yeah. I'll say this about, I think Kevin Shockey's son could probably eat more brisket than anyone there. It's
without question. Well, I mean, without question. Like there's a reason why within our little group, we've nicknamed him Tank, because he can destroy He can destroy more barbecue than a full grown human being.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Hey, Curtis, let's jump right into the new hires right here for Klint Kubiak. It just came down this morning. John Benton. I'm expecting both of you to know anything about these two guys, but no one's going to really know anything about these guys other than what they can just look up quickly on Wikipedia and whatever their profile is on their last stops. John Benton's the new offensive line coach. So the news there is Scott Huff is no longer the offensive line coach. I would assume he reunites with Kalen DeBoer now and Ryan Grubb at Alabama. And then Andrew, is it Janico?
I think so. Janoko. Okay. Either way.
Janoko is the new quarterbacks coach. So at least we've got those two new hires. And it sounds like, Curtis, based, I think it was Jeremy Fowler of ESPN, that the wide receivers coach for the Seahawks will remain on the staff. So at least Klint Kubiak, Curtis, is rounding out his coaching staff.
Yeah, I think that was always probably to be expected, that, he was going to, whoever the new offensive coordinator was going to get the latitude to have his own pieces of the coaching staff. I mean, I think I remember McDonald saying so when they made the decision to let Ryan Grubb go. So certainly not surprised on that front. And yeah, I mean, I as you mentioned, I don't know anything more about them other than the fact that you can do a quick Wikipedia search and know that they've coached alongside Kubiak for a few years in a couple different spots. So there's obviously the familiarity there. So what they're going to bring, who the heck knows? The offensive line is certainly going to be a focus for obvious reasons, and we'll see how that kind of moves ahead and what kind of success they're able to get out of that this year.
Tim, they've had the revolving door of offensive coordinators where just more so recently than ever before. And the other thing too is this revolving door of offensive line coaches. At some point, you hopefully just find someone that can stick, because I think most people who are in and around the NFL will tell you that the consistency on the offensive line is like the number one thing. You've got to have those guys playing together, and then on top of that, right, Tim, is the consistency of the same voice coaching these guys.
Yeah, I mean, and to your point, I mean, that trickles down from the issues with, having, 3 offense coordinators now in 4 years or whatever the number is, and having several different offensive line coaches during that time. So yeah, I mean, at some point you kind of need to find something that you can stick with for more than a 1 or 2 year period, like what they've been seeming to go through as of late. The one thing is, straight up just reading his Wikipedia page, the one thing that jumped out about Janoko, or Janico, however you pronounce it.
I don't know. We got to figure that out.
Is, he got his start under Mike Zimmer in Minnesota, a real defensive minded coach. He started coaching offensive line before then transitioning to working with wide receivers and quarterbacks. So I'm clearly you're bringing in someone as a QB coach, and a QB coach only does so much within the framework of the offensive system, but you're bringing in someone who understands the importance of working for a defensive head coach and working with an offensive line throughout his career to this point. So I think that's kind of a notable thing when you are trying to figure out what your identity is and what your identity will be as an offense, that you're piecing together, not only an offensive coordinator who has some of that history of working for, defensive coaches, but then the position coaches that you're bringing in around them. They seem to understand the importance. They're putting together a staff that seems to understand the importance of being able to run the ball and be a little bit more traditional than clearly what we saw last year.
You guys, question for both of you. Tim, you go first, and Curtis, just pick up right when Tim is done. Do you guys see a change in the philosophy in the NFL right now? Do you see that pendulum swinging back towards this football, where running the football is more important than passing it? Like the more physical style of the game. Do you guys get a sense of that?
Yeah, I think so. I think the numbers bear it out. I don't have them in front of me, but I think the numbers, as a whole for this season, lean toward the idea that teams were maybe throwing it a little bit less and getting back to a little bit more of the run. The difference, I think, is you're seeing a little bit more non-traditional kind of run schemes that have come into play. And I think that goes to the athleticism that you're seeing in the quarterback position now. You're going to see, at least one of them in the Super Bowl with Jalen Hurts, and kind of how Philadelphia's run game clearly takes advantage of what he can do on the ground. We saw it with Jaden Daniels and the success that Washington had this year. You know, they weren't afraid to use their quarterback as part of the run game as a whole. So I think in overall, it felt like it was trending back that way, and I think the numbers would probably bear that out. But I think it's an evolution, and you're seeing a little bit more quarterback influence in in use of the run game now.
A bit of housekeeping. According to the Saints media guide, it is Genoco is how you pronounce it for the purposes of that. So we've got that solved, at least for the time being. Unless the media guide's wrong, we'll deal with that later. But yes, I do tend to agree that it is starting to swing back more towards running games. And I thought it was heading this way slowly for a little while, but it's obviously picked up now. And I mean, think about it. When you see teams around the league start drafting smaller and smaller linebackers and linemen, you know, you have guys like Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah with Cleveland, who's like 215-pound linebacker, you know, guys of that ilk, because the speed to be able to cover and move and all of those sorts of things are coveted against passing games. The more of those type of players you have on the field, it's going to lend itself more to getting hit in the mouth with a running game. And yeah, as Tim mentioned, if you have a quarterback that can run it too, and now all of a sudden you're able to stack the box against a small defense and have a quarterback that can factor into the running game as well, all of a sudden it's that much more tougher to stop. I mean, the tush push, take the play for what it is, but and how difficult it is to stop for any defense, but it's going to be tougher to stop if you're light up on the line of scrimmage with your defensive line too. So all of those sort of circumstances will start to yield back this way. Now, you know, to use a little bit of a golf analogy, it's not like distance is ever not going to be a benefit in golf anymore, given the way the game's going. So I think passing is still going to be, like, from a value standpoint, probably worth more. So I don't think it's going to slide all the way back to, 3 yards in a cloud of dust kind of mentalities, but I do think it's going to revert back towards running the football a little bit more regularly, particularly when you see the year that Saquon Barkley had and what Derrick Henry's been able to do at times in the last several years, and that approach working to some extent.
You know, Tim, I just think it comes down to balance, doesn't it? I mean, you go look in the early, 80s, mid 80s, and with the great teams of, Bill Walsh and the West Coast offense, and then what we saw with Mike Holmgren. I mean, the West Coast offense, yeah, they threw the ball early to kind of set up their run, but they ran the ball plenty. I mean, they were always, I think sometimes the West Coast offense got unfairly pegged as maybe this soft offense, but there was a physicality to it and wanting to run the football. It was just they reversed it. Instead of having the run set up the pass, they had the pass set up the run.
Well, think about those Niners teams from the late 80s and early 90s. You remember John Taylor, and you remember Jerry Rice, and you remember Joe Montana, and you remember Steve Young, and whoever the tight end was at the time. But those teams had Roger Craig, and they had Wendell Tyler, and they had Ricky Waters in there as running backs that were crazy good for that position and what they meant to that offensive system. So yeah, the West Coast offense and what Bill Walsh created certainly was highlighted by the passing game and the star receivers that they had, but foundationally you still had to be able to run the ball no matter what. And that's been a, tried and true aspect of it, whether it was Bill Walsh, whether it was, Holmgren, whether it was Andy Reid, whether it's John Gruden. Like they've all had, everyone from that tree has, when they've been their most successful, they've had that balance that you're talking about. And while the league has definitely gone more pass oriented, to Curtis's point, yeah, I think there's kind of a course correction that's happening, and it's not going to go back to be 50-50. Right? You're not going to go back to the days of Tom Rathman as a fullback and Levon Kirkland as a 275-pound linebacker. But I think you're seeing the success that teams are having by being a little bit more old school, and the Eagles this year are a terrific example of that.
Yeah, you're right, and I just think there's a physicality, to that offense, and just because you had the passing game that would set up the running game didn't mean you just turned your attention against the running game. I mean, we're going to get to Mike Holmgren here in a little bit, but his best offense in Seattle was, he had great quarterback play, but it was largely due to a great offensive line, but a physical, powerful running game there in Sean Alexander. So it'll be interesting to see, what this new offense looks like for Seattle. Do you think in terms of Kubiak, and I think last week we talked, and I'm not sure if we addressed this. I think we did the show last week, the day after that he had got hired. Curtis, how much influence, he'll have a say, of course. How much influence do you think he should have and will have about when it comes to the quarterback, making a decision on that? Hey, maybe he goes to them and says, hey, Geno's good, but maybe he's not the right fit for this offense. I guess how loud do you think his voice will and should be in that room?
I wouldn't think it's that significant. Because you have a head coach that has a year working with Geno, and then the front office who knows him far better than the guy coming in does. And people can criticize Geno all that they want. Like, he's clearly capable of running just about any offense you want to see out there. He has his limitations, sure, but I don't know that I'd give the new offensive coordinator the carte blanche on that the minute he walks in the door. I don't think that makes a ton of sense. So I think whatever decisions they make at quarterback are kind of going to probably be separate from that. I think it comes from the next level up the chain where those decisions kind of come from. And maybe he can say, like, this is the type of quarterback that works best for me. But I don't see how that would be demonstrably different from what Geno brings to the table to where they would necessarily make the call based on that.
Tim, have you reached the point where you're done talking about Geno's future?
We're getting there.
We're getting there, aren't we?
Yeah, we're closely careening toward that cliff of finally being done with it and ready to jump off. But it is. There's some really big questions, this offseason, and that's very close to the top of the list. We've talked a lot about DK. We've talked a lot about Geno. And because I think obviously because of the positions that they play, they're the most prominent questions. You could say all you want about wanting to retool the offensive line and do all these things to it. People care the most about the stars and the guys in the marquee positions. And so as much as we're kind of done talking about it, I think it's still something we're going to talk about every time we get together until there's some clarity or resolution to it.
Right, because I think even from an organizational standpoint, they kind of blur the lines what they want, right? Of how they feel about him. It doesn't seem, they say one thing and then there's some actions behind the scenes and then somebody else will say something. So I think it's a little cloudy of truly how they feel about him. I think ultimately at the end of the day, Curtis, is they like Geno. They think they can win games with Geno. I also think at the same time, based on his age, and they say to themselves, I don't know if we can afford just to pay him the amount of money that he probably wants, and we need to have a future at that position. So I'm sure how we're taught in this business, please don't take a stand on something. You got to be on one side or the other. I think sometimes I always think it's okay to straddle the fence, and I think Seattle's kind of in a similar situation.
Well, I'm highly skeptical of people who can't say, I don't know about anything, who try to act like they have an answer for literally everything out there. There's no way you possibly can. It's just, I think you're being insufferable if that's the way you try to approach stuff personally. I have no clue what Geno Smith's situation is going to play out as here. He's probably not going to be the quarterback in 4 or 5 years from now, regardless of how good he is. So at some point they're going to have to find another quarterback. That is an objective reality that they have coming down the pike. So whether that happens in the short term or the slightly longer term is up for debate as to what the best fit is. If they make that decision this offseason, just for hypothetical sake, who is the quarterback going to be next year? And what is that team going to look like? How competitive are you trying to be in a situation where Geno Smith isn't the quarterback for one reason or another? And all of the tentacles that come off of that. If you're not going to bring Geno Smith back, is it worth doing the extension with DK and all of the different tentacles of a decision tree that would come off of roster decisions and all of that. So, yeah, it's certainly a discussion point for sure. I still continue to think that Geno Smith is the best quarterback option for them for 2025 at the very least. But, there are some decisions they're going to have to make around that choice. And I think he's plenty capable of winning at a fairly high level for them if they support him a little bit better. We've talked about it all damn year. He had to do way too much this year to try to make things work for him. And obviously the mistakes piled up when everything was on his plate. So it will continue to be a discussion point for those reasons.
All right. Chip Kelly and Pete Carroll together in the same division with John Harbaugh. My God, this is beautiful. And so, right when I first saw the news that Chip was being hired by Pete Carroll. Now, this wasn't a rumor last year. Chip Kelly was a rumor in Seattle when there was a thought that he and Dan Quinn were going to be a package deal. And then also he did interview with Mike McDonald. That there was an interview with Chip Kelly. So maybe it was John Schneider was interested in him, and probably, obviously, Pete Carroll had the same desire to probably bring him in. Maybe there was discussions even before Pete was let go. But what do you, Tim? What do you make of Chip Kelly and Pete Carroll in Vegas?
I love it. I absolutely love it. I think it's a great move. I think Chip, in some ways, kind of rehabilitated his stock as an offensive mind with what he did at Ohio State this year. Because you could offensively, they take away the Michigan game. They were maybe the most effective, efficient offense in college football for most of this season. Obviously, it led to a championship with what they did. He kind of ran his course as a head coach, and I don't know if he'll ever be a head coach again, but he sure seems to thrive as a coordinator in certain ways. And so what he did at Ohio State, sure, why not? I mean, in not a direct comparison, but in some ways it's kind of similar to Ryan Grubb last year. Like Ryan Grubb was the hot coordinator, wanted to make the jump to the NFL for the first time, didn't work. Chip at least has that NFL experience. I think he understands a little bit more of what it's going to take to make things work at this level than what Ryan Grubb did when he came in. So I think it's a great move. It's going to be really entertaining. I'm a little, just because after Pete got hired, the word that was coming out was that he was getting the band back together, and everyone thought it was going to be Darrell Bevel, and Gus Bradley and Tater was going to have some role in some capacity.
Tater's going to have a role. Tater's going to have a role.
Tater's of course going to have a role. Yeah. But so I'm slightly surprised that that it isn't Darrell Bevel that's there. But I think for where the Raiders are at, where Pete is at, where Chip Kelly is at with what he did this past season at Ohio State, I think it's a really good hire, and it's going to be damn entertaining. I think is what it's going to be.
I agree. And Curtis, what I like a little bit about it, him not maybe bringing some guys back from the past like Darrell Bevel, is that maybe again, one thing I like about Pete Carroll is it feels like he's willing to evolve with these different stops. Right, he evolved from what he did in the NFL. The first time around to college, and then when he came back to the NFL, and maybe this is just another, of him involving in his long, chapters of being a head coach in professional football and college football.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing I think Pete always got unfairly criticized for here, was that he wasn't willing to make changes to either the structure of what they were doing as a team or with his coaching staff, because he did plenty of both. And I mean, I was personally kind of rooting for the bring the band back together scenario, just because I kind of wanted to see what that would look like if Bevel and let's say Russell ended up there in Vegas and what that could have presented as. But I'm certainly curious to see what Chip Kelly will look like coming back to the NFL again, because most of the reasons he didn't work in the NFL were head coaching related reasons, from what it sounds like in Philadelphia. And he doesn't need to wear that hat in Vegas. Pete can run that show. So it could be something that works out very well for them. And given the division that they're in, having to play Kansas City and Harbaugh and, a Denver team that is at least competent. It's a tough sled ahead, and to have an offense that might be able to, cause some problems in the longer term would be beneficial for them for sure.
It's a great collection of coaches, and then this is a different Chip Kelly too in terms of a play caller. This is not the Chip Kelly that the last time a go around in the NFL where it was the hurry up and we're getting off all these plays as fast as we can. I mean, he has evolved as a play caller. I mean, still at the root of his play calling is, again, a physical rushing attack. I mean, that's where it starts and ends there with Chip Kelly. All right, Mike Holmgren Hall of Fame. It's going to be the inductees will be announced on Thursday, Tim. He is up in the, what division is it in, the veterans? Veterans.
He's the coach's nominee from the Veterans Committee, Curtis? I can't remember the name of the
whatever
committee
that's
yet.
called.
We'll call it it likely will get in, I would assume, Tim. It seems like all signs are pointing that he will finally get in.
Yeah, typically, I mean, he's the only coaching nominee this year. The only nominee, I believe, is the only nominee that came from this committee this year, if I'm remembering the process correctly. So if you're getting to this point, it's not rubber stamped, but it's pretty damn close. Like you're not being put forward in this situation if there's not a high likelihood that you are that you're getting in. So yes, I think this is the year that he finally gets the call. Incredibly deserved. I think you could say it's long overdue. There's a group of coaches there that it feels like it's long overdue. Holmgren, Coughlin, those are the first two that kind of come to mind. But guys who have won Super Bowls and who should have been recognized probably 5, 7, 10 years ago at this point. But yeah, I think it's every sign is pointing that he's getting in. And I'll be really happy for Mike because he was a really intense guy as a coach, but he's an incredibly nice guy in every other aspect of who he is and what he does.
Curtis, it's personal for us, right? We worked with him along the side of, I can't even speak. Jesus. During the draft, we worked with him. If I could spit it out, it's too early in the morning. Haven't had enough coffee. We like him, and so it's a little personal, right? At times, but I think even if you take out being the personal side of it, Curtis, I mean, the resume just stacks up. The teams, and you got to look at it. The organizations that he took over for, who one had a long history of success, but it was a long, long time ago with Green Bay, and he brought them back to life. And really where the Packers are at now is in large part due to him of bringing them back. And then for the Seahawks, I mean, they were down in the dumps. All right, they had a period of success with Chuck Knox. I remember that, but then it was morbid, where at one point they were going to move and leave town, and then he brought them back to respectability, and now I think a large part of their success that they've had, since then with the Pete Carrolls of the world, and now Mike McDonald's is in large part due to him, the quarterbacks that he's influenced, the head coaches that he's influenced. It is amazing though, and it's taken this long, Curtis, for him to get in. Oh, and hopefully he does get in Thursday.
Yeah, I mean, it is a slightly different voting system this year than it's been in the past, where these coaches have been significantly more rubber stamped in the past. I think it's less certain as a process this year. I still would feel pretty good about his chances for sure. I mean, I'm friends with, one of the Hall of Fame voters, and they would have personally put Coughlin and Shanahan ahead of Holmgren in the pecking order, but believe that all three deserve to be in. Sure. So I imagine it would probably have some similar sentiments among the coaching ranks when it comes to make the decision on that. But yeah, I mean, look, the Seahawks objectively have been one of the top 5 to 8 organizations in football for the last 20 plus years with the success that they've had. And that started with Holmgren getting this thing going in, I guess it would be 2002-ish, 2003 when Hasselbeck started. Well, yeah, but I mean, when they got going, for good. And
hey, they made the playoffs in '99 with John Kitna. Do not besmirch the greatness of John Kitna. Hey, okay, damn it.
That was a great year. It was a great year.
Yeah, it was, I mean, unfortunately, they had the last victory of Dan Marino's career. They allowed that to happen back in the day. So before they got blown out, 63-7 by Jacksonville the week after that.
Yes.
Great recall.
Yeah, a quick aside there. But no, we obviously know Mike very well. Would like to see him get into the Hall of Fame. Believe it's deserved and all of that. And so, I mean, I think we talked about it at our little lunch on Friday. The dinner that me and Shockey and Brewer and Softy had with Mike and Kathy Holmgren, and then Tom Brady's dad and Jim Gray decided to come up for a minute. There's a good story there that was pretty funny that I'll remember quite fondly too. So,
well, he's just the influence on the sport. I mean, the guys that he's influenced, and of course, number one will be the guy that you'll see on Sunday in Andy Reid, and just the coaching tree from that. Which, of course, extended from the coaching tree there of Bill Walsh, which brings us to the Super Bowl, which I believe in. Actually, they are all, if I'm correct, these two coaches are all a direct descendant of the Bill Walsh, Mike Holmgren coaching tree. Because Andy Reid, then I think it's Sirianni is part of that. That coaching tree as well. It goes all the way down from like McDermott, Doug Peterson to Brian Daboll, Frank Reich, and then Sirianni's in there through that whole tree. So, hey, listen, this is the Mike Holmgren Super Bowl coming up on Sunday with Nick Sirianni and Andy Reid. All right, with the game coming up, Curtis, who do you like? What do you think at the end of the day? Chiefs do it again, or the Eagles pull off what would, I guess, be a mild upset?
I think it's going to be a really good game. And I don't know that I swing heavily to either side of thinking that they, I'm definitely picking them for this reason. I'm going to default to Kansas City, just because they have the better quarterback at the end of the day.
Are they your rooting interest? Are you rooting for them to win?
I have no issue with Kansas City. Yeah, I'll root for Kansas City.
Okay,
and I like watching them play offensive football. Other than the floppiness that Mahomes had a couple weeks ago, that was pretty chicken.
Okay,
but. In general, yeah, I like watching them play. I've got no issue with the Chiefs myself. And I'm not a fan of the tush push play necessarily. I don't think it should be illegal, but it's kind of, gimmicky to me. And I think the better quarterback's going to do enough to win this one.
Tim, what about for you? We all have rooting interests, whether it's emotional, rooting interest, financial, doesn't matter. There's a rooting interest. So your rooting interest on Sunday is what? Is who?
I guess my rooting interest is I just want to see a damn good game, and I think we're going to get a damn good game. I think it feels like this entire season has been like the Saquon Barkley revenge tour. Like, screw you, New York, for not believing in me and essentially giving up on me and not putting a competent team around my talent with the Giants. I think the Eagles are going to win. I think Saquon's going to have a huge game. If he had, let me put it this way: if he has a huge game, Philadelphia wins. Kansas City's been pretty good at stopping the run this year, but I don't know, just everything that guy's done this year. It just feels like he's on one giant FU kind of tour toward everybody. And he's the kind of guy that, with his talent, and with how often they feature him in the offense, how much he touches the ball, he can influence a game in a similar way to what a quarterback does. And if he gets adequate blocking from that really good offensive line, he's the kind of guy that can turn a 3-yard gain into a 60-yard touchdown. And we've seen it at various points this season and in the playoffs. So I think the Eagles win. I think Saquon's probably the MVP. But at the end of the day, I just want to see a really good game, and I have nothing against the Chiefs. So if we see a three-peat for the first time ever, I'm going to be pretty appreciative of how remarkable that accomplishment is in the annals of not just football, but in all sports. To see that quarterback, that coach, that team win 3 in a row would be pretty incredible. But I think the world makes Kevin Shockey happy, and I think the Eagles win.
Yeah,
the comedic value of Saquon Barkley winning to spite the New York Giants would be exceptionally high. So I would like to see that too. after the hard knocks with the Giants this offseason and how they let him go. That would be freaking hilarious, and I would be all in for that.
And I would present the player of the game, the MVP, to them. They should, like the owner and the GM of the Giants.
And the New York Giants, yeah.
No, come on, and then have him, and he's in a suite or at home. And I'm going to Disneyland because they made it possible. They made it possible.
That would be really good
to win the whole thing. Yeah, boys, appreciate it. We'll do one more visit next week to kind of wrap up the NFL season, wrap up the Super Bowl, and we'll probably ask more about Geno's future, and then we'll take a break, and then we'll get you on a few more times during the offseason, specifically, right around the NFL draft. Enjoy the Super Bowl. Eat and drink as much as you possibly can, and we'll reconvene next Monday. Thank you again.
Thanks, Buck.
Thanks, Buck.
There they are. Curtis Crabtree, Tim Booth, Ground Puck Seahawks podcast. Check it up on YouTube. And also when you're there, subscribe also on the audio platforms, podcast platforms, your favorite ones, Apple, Spotify, wherever you find your podcast. And of course, everything always up at pucksports.com. Again, big thanks to Tim and Curtis for jumping on earlier this morning and recording. And again, as I always say, full episodes up on the entire show when we put it up on YouTube later, as I just mentioned there. And I'm going to mention again, when you're on YouTube, as always, please subscribe to the channel. Pass it along to family and friends. And, of course, the entire audio show will be up on audio. If I say it like that, audio show will be up on the podcast platforms as well. When you're there, please write a review. Also, rate the show, please. We would love to have all of that done by you fabulous viewers and listeners, because I know we got people that watch it live and listen to it live, and then also watch and listen later, because you want to know why? You're busy people. You can't just sit around and watch this live every single day. As I mentioned before, the Cougars coordinators with Danny Freund, the offense coordinator for the Cougs. If you are a Cougs fan, even if you're not, check it out. Also, Jesse Bobbit. That will come out tomorrow at 10 a.m. along with, I got a tape with John Canzano in the morning, along with John Canzano tomorrow as well. So just those two tomorrow. No live show tomorrow. I'll explain what's going on probably on Wednesday. Nothing serious. Don't worry about it. Nothing serious for me, but I'll be an open book about it, but we'll talk about it on Wednesday, if I can make it back for Wednesday. But again, just no live show tomorrow on Tuesday. So John Canzano will be taped. Fingers crossed if we can work it out. But you will have tomorrow at 10 o'clock the WSU coordinators that we did last week. That was fun. Danny Freund is real interesting offensive coordinator for the Cougs. It's going to be a vastly different offense next season. I'm intrigued by it. I'm intrigued you're going to see him under center more, running the ball more, but still trying to be explosive in the passing game. I welcome the change. I know some don't, but I welcome the change of being a little bit more committed to running the football. So I'm excited for it. And Jesse Bobbit, real excited. I think you're going to come away from that interview. You're a Coug fan listening to Jesse Bobbit talk. That guy is a future head coach. To me, he's a future head coach there in college football. All right, a lot to get caught up on the show today, man. We covered a lot. Jim Moore, and then, of course, there with the Seahawks, the Ground Puck Seahawks podcast. A lot with the Luka stuff today and the Lakers. The Little League assessment in my final Little League draft yesterday, which was crazy. Chip Kelly news. Mike Holmgren hopefully going into the Hall of Fame coming up on Thursday. All right, we wrap up the show as we do every day with the Daily Puck Drop with Hey, What the Puck? It's brought to you by Restoration One of North Seattle. Your restoration company lets you avoid the stress of water, fire, and mold damage with their property restoration services. Locally owned. Trent is our guy. He owns it. He's a fabulous man and a fabulous company. Make him your first call when those damages affect your residential or commercial property. 206-817-8917. Visit them online, restoration1.com, the North Seattle franchise. All right, I'm going to discuss this with Canzano tomorrow if we end up recording the show. If we don't, something hits a snag, we'll do it the following week. And something I'd also like to talk to Brandon Huffman about, because Huffman's got a different opinion on this one from 24/7 Sports, and I've known Brandon forever, going back to our Portland days, and now here, and Brandon's an awesome dude. The NCAA is considering, there's a lawsuit, I think it's the Wake Forest quarterback, off the top of my head, where they want to allow the years that you spend in junior college not to count against your college eligibility. So you can go to junior college for a year or two, but then when you get to, major college football, the NCAA, you still have your 5 years. And there's coaches who don't like it, coaches for high school that don't like it, and then there's some that, hey, that are not that up in arms about it. And Brandon's one of those, he does not think it will affect high school recruiting. Now, he knows it way better than I do. Now, I would just ask Brandon and anyone, how would it not? How would it not affect high school recruiting? Whether you think it's not going to affect it all that much, I just don't think you should be able to be like 7 years in college. I just don't. So I don't think they should not allow it. I think once your junior college years, and again, if you're unfamiliar with the story, there's a lawsuit going on to try and not have your junior college years count against your college eligibility. The reason being is because these guys are not getting NIL deals in junior college. Okay, well, no one's forcing you to go to junior college, number one. You can try and go to a smaller school and get in and go that route. But, okay, you don't then get to be like, all right, I go to junior college for 2 years, then I come in and I get 5 more years. I mean, we're talking now, we got guys in college at 25 and 26 years of age. And I know it's happening now, and it's, with all the red shirts and medical red shirts and COVID and all that, and we've seen more and more of that. I'm not a fan of it. And I'm also not a fan of it from the high school recruiting stance. I mean, the portal has taken a huge hit, and the transfer portal a huge hit on high school recruiting, because teams are, and college coaches will tell you, they're placing more value on the transfer portal than they are high school recruiting, just because of, if I can get a guy who's 20, 21 in the portal who can help me immediately, is more physically and mentally mature than an 18-year-old, I'm going to go that route. But thus it hurts kind of high school recruiting and opportunities, I would think, for kids at the next level. Now, they could go the route of going to a smaller school, spend a year or two there at a smaller school. I'm just going to, Eastern Washington. And then they go to Eastern Washington, and they're like, all right, now I'm going to move up, and I'm going to go to Washington State. I'm going to go to Washington. Maybe like kind of what Jimmy Rogers is going on right now with South Dakota State. Go to South Dakota State, FCS for a couple years, then I move up to Washington State or to another program. But I don't know. I think there's just something kind of fundamentally wrong of, if you go the junior college route, which is great, highly recommended for some, that counts as your college. It just does, and it should. And I don't think it shouldn't be where you don't have that count against your college eligibility. It should, if you choose that route. 2 years, you come in, you would have, 2 years or 3 years? Because can you still use a red shirt when you go to junior college? I don't know that. But at least have at minimum would have the 2 years there to play. So, and again, there's two sides to it. There's Brandon Huffman's side to it. And Brandon's been on Twitter just talking about, and has been quoted in some pieces of that, he does not think it's going to be a big deal. Maybe we'll effort to get Brandon on here and talk to him about it. And there is Monty Kohler's gone on the record of saying it's going to be a problem, and sees it as a problem right now. He's the longtime coach there at O'Day High School. But I think they all would say that the transfer portal is kind of, in college football, has been kind of the biggest detriment right now to high school recruiting. And, you just want as many opportunities for these kids coming out of high school to be able to get scholarship offers in college who are deserving. I mean, you got guys slipping through the cracks, and maybe some not going to the bigger programs, but going to some smaller programs and making those smaller programs even better than they were before. So I would vote for no not allowing the junior college years to not count against your college eligibility. I think they should remain the same. You played junior college for 2 years. That's 2 years of your eligibility that has been used up. All right. That's it. That's Hey, What the Puck, again, brought to you by Restoration One in North Seattle. It is your restoration company that lets you avoid the stress of water, fire, and mold damage. Locally owned and operated. Make them your first call when those damages affect your residential or commercial property. 206-817-8917. Ask for Trent. He is going to take care of you when he's not obsessed with Little League Baseball. Because he's obsessed. But we love him. And we love Trent, and we love Restoration One. Restoration1.com, the North Seattle franchise. All right, full show up on YouTube later. Please, when you're there, subscribe to it. Also on your favorite podcast platforms, whatever it is, please rate the show. 5 stars is minimum. And also, please write a review. Again, reminder, no live show tomorrow. We will have Danny Freund, offensive coordinator of the Cougs, and Jesse Bobbit, defensive coordinator for the Cougars. That will be a podcast that will be released tomorrow at 10 a.m. Also, a conversation with John Canzano coming out at 10 a.m. tomorrow. So we will talk to you tomorrow, but we'll see you most likely on Wednesday. Thank you for everyone checking in today on a Monday. Happy Super Bowl week to one and all. We will talk to you again. As always, promise to be better.
No shoes, no ties.
Would anybody like to smoke some pot?
Yeah.
I was born to love you. I was born to lick your face. I was born to rub you. But you were born to rub me first.
What do you need my address for? We'd like to send out a mailer.
Mother of mercy, I don't speak Japanese!